My name is Katharine Gruen. I am 88 years old, and I was born in an area that was Czechoslovakia at that point, though culturally it was Hungarian. In 1938 it became Hungary, and everything else followed. I have been thinking about many times of my experience. However, for whatever reason, I think more of the events of those years and also about my need and my belief that I have to keep remembering, because that is the only thing I can do, remembering the people I lost in the Holocaust. I think it was 1938 when the Hungarians occupied at that time the place where I was born. And in a certain way, many people were glad for that event. However, we learned very soon that the Hungarians, being following the German line, they really meant harm to all of us. Pretty soon, there were all kinds of laws that restricted our existence. I was in high school at that time. I was, I believe, 15 years old, and I began to see that they no longer accepted Jewish girls, but they allowed those in the Hungarian language high school to remain who started in that very same school. But daily, all kinds of laws appeared, and by 1941, when I graduated, we were already restricted from going to the celebration that we are graduates, and many other things. Then came the Jewish stars have to be sewn on our outer garments, and we couldn't be out after 6 o'clock. So we knew that there are some big problems. The Germans were so adept by then of getting people together and forcing them and taking them into those carts. They were within 1 month to transport out to. We did not know where. We were told we are going to Germany to work. That was the German commandant one time having people in rows of 5. This is where it began. He said not to panic because we are going to Germany for work. By May, it was May already, because I remember we did go. April 20th was my birthday, and this was the approximate time when we were taken. Gendarmes came into the house and they said you could take 1 luggage and you have to leave the house. This was our own home, and that's when we simply had to walk out. They provided the transportation, and they used every vehicle, horses, anything to take us to the brick factory. After 1 month there, they started deploying us to Germany. They had first, second, third transport, and I remember we were at the third transport. My mother died in January of that year. She had a severe heart condition, so she couldn't have taken that route. My father, my sister with a 1-year-old baby, and me were in that transport. That travel took about 2-3 days. I sincerely don't remember how did we survive with that baby. I simply don't remember. We were standing, of course, there was only standing room in one of the carts. As far as I remember, there were about 40 people. I know that we didn't get anything to drink or food, not that it would have been important to what we were arriving to. Within about 2 or 3 days we arrived and saw that big sign that the whole world knows now, Arbeit macht frei. I must say that for somebody who used to know things and read a lot, I did not know the existence of Auschwitz and also the differences of certain camps. When we got off those big whatever the Polish long-term prisoners were trying to tell us something. Unfortunately, I didn't understand Yiddish because that was what they were trying to do. What they were saying, a couple of people tried a tremendous chaos as a lot of people get off those trains. People were concerned what happens to their luggage. And these former prisoners were trying to, prisoners really long term, they were trying to say, leave them behind, you'll get them someday. A tremendous chaos. However, I remember all of a sudden German commanders appeared and Mengele in person was fast organizing rows of 5, left, right, older people there, young children in another row, and then there was a third group that was set to just had to go. Nobody said goodbye to the other person. Nobody knew where the other person went. And all of a sudden I found myself just swept in a row of 5 and was going somewhere. One incident is in my mind, and through the years as I have been thinking, I wonder how real that is or whether I am imagining some of that. As those prisoners were yelling, give the young children to old people. Of course, we didn't understand why, which everybody knows today. And there was an old neighbor next to us, and my sister tried to give her the baby. And as the rows were swept, I remember Mengele stopping the row and asking My sister was kind of following this older woman and asked, "Is that baby yours?" And she said yes. She spoke German well. And she said, "You could take him," or her, I don't know whether how. And then I saw my sister going, holding her baby. I was not allowed to go that way. I was pushed to another group. And that was the last that I saw her. How naive and not clear the picture was to me when I was already in that horrendous Vernichtungslager, having gone through, shaved, my hair was shaved like in that group that I was. It stands out in my mind how naive I was when we were already in that camp. Only some men came in to that camp cleaning the latrines, and we were not allowed to talk to them, but somehow I tried to ask one, "Where are the mothers with the little children?" And he said, "In the H-lager." That's how I remember his hand movement. And I went ahead and I was looking how to get in touch with somebody in the H-lager. And I found a piece of wood and scratched, and because there was no paper or pencil, that wouldn't have made a difference. But anyway, I had thrown that piece of wood with some little scratching letters and threw it towards the H-lager. Very shortly after, somehow someone explained to me that the H-lager was the Himmellager. Himmel meaning in the sky. So such were the first experiences. Slowly as time went, we were in one of those camps where the wires were electrified, but I have never seen anybody going near. I didn't either to the electrified wire, which would have been instant death. But we weren't allowed to walk around within the camp. You could see they had those structures high above the camps where the soldiers with drawn weapons were looking at us, I imagine. This was, I am sure that it was written about and pictured as to what that camp looked like. I still don't understand the organization that the Germans could keep up. I always try to stop in movement and think as to what is happening. And all of a sudden I found myself in the row of 5 going at first to the shower. And it was a gradual way of taking away everything from a person, everything from a person within a few minutes as to what I was before and what I became. As we were told to undress, and other older prisoners were shaving our hair, the only thing we could keep at that point was our shoes. I don't even know why. But anyway, I found myself standing there next to another person whose hair was also shaven, who was naked, had nothing. And it could have been even a relative. You don't recognize people. You stand totally alone because it looks like they are all strangers. Women without hair, they are really incredibly unbelievable looking. This way with the shoes, then at the end of the line they gave us some old rags that they must have collected who knows where. And the way we looked, we did not look normal. The way we looked at one another, we were looking for explanations, but I found none. Actually, the Blockälteste was a girl from Slovakia. She could have been about 20. And they suffered so much building that camp, they became mean, and they were really used by the Germans to keep us quiet. I know that in that food, whatever they gave us, that liquid, some brown liquid, they had some tranquilizers or some other stuff. What I once heard that it was bromide because the women didn't have their periods. Well, that couldn't have been handled anyway, but it's almost immediately stopped. I understood that life is worth nothing in a camp like that, but I still wanted to, just was looking as to what is happening to humanity, to not, at that point, it stopped being just to care about myself, because that was not important anymore. That was what they called the Vernichtungslager, which means that they intend to get rid of it, really, to disappear. We were not even given numbers, at which point they were tattooing numbers to other people. Nobody ever asked a name over there. What I was wondering about, how do you count for people? You are just a number. But they were coming twice a day, the Germans, what they called Zählappels, that we were standing outside sometime very early in the morning, like 4 o'clock, and they counted us at each block. There were 31 blocks in that one camp, 1,000 women in each block. And we did not know that the political situation has changed because we heard nothing, we were not told anything, and just things were left to our imagination, really. I actually had absolutely no thoughts of the future. The present was so horrendous that it took most of the energy that a person had. How do you survive just till the next sail appel? I only fainted once from hunger in the 6 months that life was that. Other people sometimes daily. And what we tried to do when a person fell of hunger, 2 people will try to raise up that person. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. We knew already, I knew, that one can't get sick. Because if one is sick, one is taken, there was one block, was the hospital. And that we knew that you cannot come out alive from the hospital. That seemed to be we talked a lot at night, very quietly, because in the daytime you couldn't. And I think it was a lifesaver in a way. I became friendly with one of the girls who had a little power, and I became a night watch. It meant that myself and another girl were watching that no one would leave at the back door. We were just sitting on a chair at night. I didn't have to be on a wooden bed, those 3-tiered beds, 10 people sleeping on one of the tiers. I could be sitting. And once in a while somebody dared to come to that back door because they had some dishes over there. You couldn't go to the latrines overnight, so whatever you had to do by the door. And I was able to sit there with another girl, and we talked, slept some and talked some, and that was a lifesaver. Not much thought was given as to what happens tomorrow. It was surviving today was the major thought. As to what happens we have seen, there were barracks after barracks after barracks. As far as Auschwitz was concerned, I have never seen a blade of grass or a bird. I have never seen such a desolate, terrible-looking place. It was just camp after camp after camp. Hope was very, very seldom appearing in our thoughts over there. There was absolutely no hope in anything, but on Yom Kippur they said, some people are foolish enough to want to keep a religion, whatever it meant, that they should fast. And they alerted us not to dare to not eat if they would take back, let's say, that big, I don't know, whatever dish they carry that out of the kitchen to the barrack, that not to do that because that would have terrible consequences. Well, I had decided I had a great question up to date as to my belief in whether God exists or not. So it didn't bother me to eat on Yom Kippur if I had to be there. They did take us out from Auschwitz, we did not know. I had learned as of late that actually the Russians were nearing Auschwitz. It would have been a wonderful piece of news, but we didn't know. We did not know why are they emptying Auschwitz. We have seen the next camps, there were fewer people. And at that point, just about a short time, that the burning in the crematoriums had stopped. We did not know any reasons for it. We just accepted things that were happening because we knew that we can't do anything about things that happen. We were just prisoners we were doing what they told us to do. They took us to a very large camp where they were prisoners of all sorts. They had groups of British soldiers who were watched by the Wehrmacht, not by the SS. There were Belgian prisoners. They all were moving about in that large camp, except these 500 women coming from Auschwitz. We were in a building that was surrounded by wire. We could not, although it wasn't electrified wire. It was some sort of a building that could have been a school some time ago where we were placed. And I must say, we were of course very suspicious, didn't know what's coming. But the murder stopped right there. From that point on, this was an airplane factory, what called Zitwerke. And out of the 500 women, a couple of us were selected to go with guards to that factory where we were supposedly worked. But we didn't realize that they were packing up and intending to take their wares to the West. We were right in the middle between East and Western troops. They were afraid of the Russians. They did not know who will come and take this place. But they were trying to go to the Western Front because they believed they will be saved by the British or the Americans. Up to the last moment, we did not know if the Germans will blow up that building where we were, or they will kill us, or what. And of all things, on May 8th, the end of the war, that was, the Germans disappeared. We didn't know what to do with the freedom. We didn't know what to do. There was no organization. But somehow we started to leave that building. We still didn't believe that the guards disappeared. Now what? There was the biggest chaos in Europe that anybody could imagine people trying to go. We had no food. No one told us. We set up, we went to a little garden, 4 girls and 3 Belgian men, and they caught a chicken, whatever, and the girls immediately started to cook. Like I always do, I did nothing, I was just trying to understand which way to go. And that evening ended with a terrible sickness with me. No one told us, after the kind of starvation, you must not eat normally. I never ate an awful lot, but anyway, I ate and I got deathly sick, but there was no medical care. We didn't know what to do. And I struggled with that disease for occasionally disappearing and occasionally coming back until a couple months later, when I reached the town where I was born and was in the hospital for about a week, only learning what was wrong with me, not really being treated. This reminds me really that I grew up as a regular middle-class person. This is my father, who I lost there. I seldom cry. Only if I think somehow there is 2 levels how I view this experience. One of them is the terrible historical tragedy where I think humanity lost on both sides, because I can't imagine ordinary citizens becoming murderers who did not go through some sort of a transformation that made them monsters. And the other one is the personal loss. That's where I could cry. I think that the enormity of that tragedy that occurred, it cannot be explained. I felt that way, and it cannot be understood by people who live a so-called normal life. I think it could be very scary. And I don't know what their understanding could be. I think young people would have to be helped by normal, quote, normal adults to be prepared to hear that horror. Maybe it just cannot be understood. In the 21st century, where there were a lot of discoveries, modern living, maybe it's just not understandable.